What's up, bros and hoes, whatever floats your goat? It's Runless, and welcome back to another Division build video. Now, sticking with the theme that I've been going along with for quite some time now, we are looking at non-traditional 6-piece builds that have a place. Now, along these lines, we are looking for flexibility, survivability, and most importantly, versatility. And in my opinion, other than the Hexo, you can check that build out on my builds playlist. That has a lot of versatility too, with the mix and match pieces that you can apply to that, such as the Barrett's Tenacious Rehabilitated, the Skull MC gloves, the Pharaoh's Mask. It has a lot of versatility in it. This build as well has a lot of versatility along with survivability and basis on more or less the counters that we encounter, pun there, in the dark zone, where it be bleed, fire, shock, any kind of exotic damage from grenades or sticky bombs, seekers, things of all types. And I kind of went into the laboratory and was like, what could I put together that has a lot of counters in it? And they may not be 100% counter everything as far as counter like the full everything by 100%, but it dang near gets the job done, especially when you encounter a mob, whether you be rogue or going against rogues, that are constantly lobbing grenades. And keep in mind, non-traditional 6-piece, because when everybody's spamming grenades, the obvious 6-piece would be the final measure. Now, more or less going along with that without the non-6-piece, but having a lot of survivability, versatility, and flexibility, I give you the counter build. As you can see, it's utilizing the Ninja Backpack, 2 Pred, 2 Banshee, and 1 final measure. Now, you get the 8% bonus damage from Predator's Mark with ARs and SMGs, and also the 10% reload speed. Along with the Banshee, you are getting the 10% damage to targets out of cover, and of course the final measure, you are getting the 25% exotic damage resilience. Now, it comes a long way when it comes to having exotic damage resilience, so that way you are more or less reducing that blunt force trauma that grenades can give you, because let's just face it, they do take a large chunk of health out of you when hit with grenades if you have no exotic damage resilience whatsoever. Now, just based on the pieces that I have, your pieces will probably be better, especially if you have chest pieces that have additional EDR on them. But let's go over everything, and then we'll go over the character sheet, and we'll discuss things in depth a little further. Let's start with a chest piece, maxed out in armor. Instead of the enemy armor damage here, like I said before, you can mix and match pieces. I would go with this Banshee, but it has 11% exotic damage resilience. But as you can see, its armor value is pretty low, almost right at 86, lower than the current chest piece. But, you know, that little armor variation won't really matter. But in a perfect world, instead of enemy armor damage on this Pred vest, I would actually have some EDR by way of like it is on my Banshee. And then, of course, ammo capacity along with health. And in the mod slots, we have 2 stamina mods and health. Moving on to the mask. As you can see, if you want to do a little PvE with this build, you can also have a lot of survivability and a lot of fun with it. Just have in the minors that 11% damage to elites. Switch out a few mods to have additional damage to elites in your mod slots, and you're basically good to go. And then you want the main stat roll to stamina, and in the major attributes you want 4% crit chance. And in the mod slots I have firearms and health. Now, going on to the gloves, you want whatever weapon type you are best familiar with, or in whichever you'll be using. In this case, I'm an SMG player. I prefer it over pretty much any other weapon type that there is in the game. And you want crit chance and crit damage rolled to firearms. Now, going on to the backpack, 1329 good armor stat. It is rolled to stamina. In the majors, you want crit hit damage. In the minors, as always, you want ammo capacity. In this case, I do not have a ninja bag that actually has ammo capacity on it, so I just use the best one that I have. And for the situation, it works out still pretty nice, but only having at least one rolled to ammo capacity, whether it be your chest piece or backpack. In the mod slots, we have stamina and crit chance, 6% first aid self-heal, and another 6% first aid self-heal. Now moving on to the knee pads, roll to firearms, maxed out on its armor. Major attributes, you want roll to crit hit damage, and as you can see in the minors, we have shock resistance, burn resistance, and blind death. In the mod slot here, we have the stamina and health mod along with a 6% first aid self-heal. Moving on to the holster, you want the majors roll to crit chance, and in the mod slot, you want 6% first aid self-heal. Now, as you typically know me, if you've seen any of my videos, certain situations that I do roam the DZ, whether it be just solo, duo, triple, or even mostly in a squad, and typically I haven't really had a healer, but I had played with a healer as of late, but my typical play doesn't go along with actually having a healer, so that's why this build is based upon it. If you actually have a healer, a good healer in your build that knows and how to play with the healer, a good support role, then you can go less tanky in your toughness category and apply that to firearms, or you can actually come a little bit off in toughness and apply to skill power. It all depends on your playstyle. This build reflects my particular playstyle and how I like to do things. So you can, switch out different mods. You can go a little bit more firearms, a little bit less toughness. It all depends on your gameplay, and you are the best one that knows how you play with certain things, so you can roll things accordingly. And when it comes to the versatility category, we all know the infamous Pritchie build that a lot of people run, and typically when you are in, well, I wouldn't say typically, it's a fact that when you're in combat, you cannot switch out loadouts, but it'll say you can switch out pieces one at a time. That's where the versatility comes in. If you notice, you don't really need the extra exotic damage resilience because not too many people are spamming the grenades, whether you're rogue or non-rogue, then it is so easy just to switch out this one piece of final measure and slip in another Banshee, especially in the case if you are going against rogue players yourself, then you would easily be able to just switch out these gloves and put in another Banshee, so that way you get the fourth piece bonus, which is while rogue, all ammo is completely refilled every 30 seconds. Damage taken from non-rogue players is reduced by 10%. While not rogue, damage to rogue players is increased by 10%. This bonus is increased by 20% for 10 minutes after being killed by a rogue. So like I said, it's so easy to just switch out this one piece. But if you do not have a 6-piece final measure, and if you are going like I am and just trying out different variations and wanting something to more or less counter that large chunk of health that is taken from you with other grenades that you're being hit with, then if you have EDR just on your chest piece, that will help. But also with the 25% alongside of what you can have on your chest, accompanied with that, then you are more or less almost taking half of that damage that you would be taking from your health and actually reducing it, so therefore you will have a lot more survivability. And you're doing tons of damage because you are getting a total of 20% just from the way of the Predator's Mark, plus the damage that you get from your gloves, as you see there, 12%, and then you get another 10% on top of that to targets out of cover by the way of Banshee. So you're getting a base of 30 plus percent in damage bonus. Now on the weapons, as you see here, I have the infamous Vicious, Deadly, and Card Counter. If you are running in a squad that somebody has a good pulse, then I would switch to this one, which is deadly and responsive. But going over this one in the mod slot, I have magazine size, crit damage, and crit chance. In the optics, crit damage, optimal range, and crit chance. In the muzzle, crit hit damage, headshot damage, crit hit chance. And in the underbarrel, crit hit damage, reload speed, and a little bit of stability. Now in my secondary, if I so choose to don't want to reload and switch, then I have this M4 with vicious, unforgiving, and competent. But if I'm, farming a little bit and just happen to have someone flag up behind me or whatnot, then typically, if I'm just trying to grind dailies or weeklies or whatnot, then I'll roll with this, which is vicious, deadly, and prepared, especially on my predator build. But as soon as I get this one optimized, then I will go for it, especially when all things PvE, which is predatory, deadly, and determined. Now going to the character sheet on my house, 57% crit hit chance, 137% crit hit damage, 56% headshot damage. Our range is 58 feet. I get a max bonus of 15% on the reload speed, which does come in handy. As you can see, 8% on assault rifles and 20% from the pred, and the 12% coming by way of gloves. I have a little bit of damage to elites. It helps me knock down NPCs a little bit faster by way of 11%. This enemy armor damage, like I said, in this particular way, I would rather have the exotic damage resilience, that little extra added EDR. And then, we just have the base skill power of 88.8. And then our max health pool is 362k with armor mitigation of 33.41. Then as you can see, we have the 25% exotic damage resilience. That if I had it on my chest piece like I do my Banshee, then that would be 36% here. And then blind death resistance 33%, burn is 33%, disrupt 17%, and shock resistance 33%. So as high as you can get these to go, some of you will probably have better values on your pieces, that these values that you see here will be a lot higher than what I have. And when it's talking about counters, we all know how to counter pred. A lot of people cry and complain about it, just like they do Nomad or any other build. It's just, you got to know the build's ins and outs, so that way you can successfully counter when you encounter it in the dark zone. And several of these ways, we all know the immune box. Run adrenaline on your talent, so that way when you pop a med kit, you more or less cleanse yourself and are immune for a certain amount of time from all status effects. Along with other things, once you become under status effects, you can more or less teach yourself, because especially on console, if you're not familiar with pulling out and eating a candy bar, the more you'll do it, the faster you'll get at it. That is another counter. So that is 3 total counters to the pred bleed right there. The more or less half counter, I would say, to the the grenade spam. I about put 2 words together and formed a whole new word there. That would be the exotic damage resilience wherever you can apply. And then if you are more or less rogue policing, or just going for rogue kills in general because you just like to PvP, and you're not more or less policing, you're just doing a little bit of both, then you can easily switch out these gloves as you see here to a Banshee piece, or whatever you just have. If you have such as a final measure on any of these pieces, you can just switch that out to another Banshee, and bam, you are instantly in Predshi mode. So you have a lot of versatility. And if you don't have a pred on your team, and you have a lot of individuals just the typical Nomad flag, shoot a couple of shots and run, and just want you to chase them, and by some chance, if you're like a cat with a little cat toy chasing that little red line around, then you'll pursue in that chase, and you can easily just put on another predator's mark here, so that way you can successfully apply bleed to them and slow them down. So that's where the versatility comes in hand. The survivability is when it comes by way of your toughness, accompanied with the EDR that you have on this build. So that covers the 2 aspects alone right there. Now let's go on to the skills. As you can see, I'm running Booster Shot and of course the Immunizer. And if you're solo, Recovery Link. Usually if I'm non-solo, I will go either with a TAC or a Survival Link. For this particular build, if you are solo and you're playing exactly how it is, along with the final measure thing, you necessarily probably want to hit a blue and have a blue on, so that way you have another 50% of damage resilience and that increased speed, especially when getting spammed with a lot of grenades. Now if you have no one, or you're just in a duo or solo, instead of the booster shot, you could go with a pulse here, so that way you are hitting max crit chance, even though I'm only 3% off. So I feel in this situation, for this particular build, if you have a gun that doesn't have vicious on it, then that would sit you at around 47 to 48%. So you could easily switch to a pulse if you're in that situation, but as the way I have it right now, I don't feel that I need a pulse because I'm at 57% crit hit chance. It's so much easier just to apply the precision talent over here, headshot a hostile to pulse them for 10 seconds, so that way, you know, it affects agents as well. So that's a good way to close that 3% gap without sacrificing a whole other skill if you have to hit that 60% crit chance. In my opinion, as long as you're anywhere between 55 to 60% crit chance, then you're all good, especially in a group, because even a base pulse, somebody in your group will be running that, because usually your healer will be more or less having a box and the booster shot, and then one of your group, somebody will be having a base pulse, so you're going to hit that max crit chance regardless. But within a group, as always, you definitely want adrenaline. That'll help you out with the bleed. But also you want combat medic, especially in a group. I've seen a lot of videos or just randoms that, you know, ask you to join that are already playing with 2 or 3 others, but nobody's running combat medic. Combat medic is so crucial when it comes to a squad play, whether it be 2 of you, 3 of you, or 4 of you, as long as they're in a vicinity. And, you know, I constantly glance down at my teammates' health in PvP or even PvE situations, and I see if their health is dipping really extremely low, and they're just more or less, you know, face taking someone, then just throw them a bone, pop a med kit for them, so that way they can get a little bit of health, so they can continue to fire shots downrange, especially if they're on the verge of downing someone. So that is a good thing to keep in mind. And also, strike back, reach low health to reduce active skill cooldowns by 20%. Critical save, use a med kit during low health to increase damage resistance by 20% for 10 seconds. So that's where the flexibility comes in, and you can say also, well, there's a lot of flexibility and versatility in a lot of different builds and varieties of them. I'm more or less going along with the, like I said, the non-6-piece traditional exotic gear sets. Well, I wouldn't say exotic, classified gear sets, such as the 6-piece final measure. The final measure, yeah, you do get buffed from grenades, but if nobody throws any grenades, then basically you're just a semi-support role when it comes to playing in group play, and you're constantly on the if and when situation and scenario, which is if and when somebody throws a grenade, then you might get it. But, you know, there's always a way to counter final measure 2. It's just doubling up on your grenades thrown. Simultaneously throw double grenades, and yes, it'll cancel out one, but then also, you know, they can only do that once every I believe 8 seconds, so that is another way. But yet you're doing a lot of base damage, but yet having tons of survivability. And like I say, I'll reiterate this is just based on my playstyle. You can make this build and any build your own. You know your own individual playstyle. You can go down in toughness, go in more firepower, and by way of firearms if you so choose. If you want some more skill power, then you can take off your toughness and apply it to your skill power. It's all depend upon your playstyle and who you have and who you're running within your group and what they're using. So like any group, any smart group that constantly plays PvP, it's easy, just, you know, ask what everybody's using, so that way you can use something to complement theirs. You know, there's so many people that are just so dependent on one particular build, and that's all that they play. They don't try to choose anything up, so they force everybody else to play around their play style instead of just being a melting pot where everybody's working hand in hand and cohesively together. That's the way true PvP group play should be. But anyways, I hope you enjoyed it. If it's been informative, ground and pound that like and subscribe button. If you happen to be new to the channel, I appreciate you tuning in. Don't forget to trigger those bells so that way you turn on post notifications, so that way you know each and every time a new video goes up. Hope you guys had a happy holidays. We're on to the new year and await Division 2. And I can't wait. A lot of these cheeses that people cry and complain about in the DZ will be gone, and we'll have a fresh start. But thank you guys so much for tuning in. We'll see you fudging later.